Welcome in and thanks for watching. I'm Nate Henry here to give you my weekly impressions from week 5. I know that not everybody can watch every game, so I want to give you some quick instant fantasy analysis and weekly impressions from each game on Sunday. Talking hard-hitting, quick analysis to help you make waiver decisions, find trade targets, and digest each week's action. But before we dive into it, I want to remind you to click that like button, and better yet, click subscribe to our YouTube channel. And better even yet, add some comments. We'd love to get some interaction and hear what you have to say. All right, with that said, let's get into the weekly action. Starting on the Thursday night game, we have the Tampa Bay Bucks versus the Chicago Bears. In a world where only 2 tight ends are consistent, Jimmy Graham has been pretty good. He's actually tight end 4 on the year, and the Bears are using him in a way that's usable for fantasy purposes. He's on the field a lot, 76%, and he's actually their main goal line target. Sure, he's going to put up some duds because this offense isn't very good, but he's not terrible for the tight end position. My weekly impression suggests that he's startable week in and week out. All right, getting into the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Houston Texans. We were all waiting to see what the firing of Bill O'Brien did for this offense, and so far it means a ton of down-the-field passing for Deshaun Watson. There were loads of air yards in this game. So it looks like losing Bill O'Brien is a huge upgrade for all Texans passers and pass catchers. All right, getting into the Bengals and the Ravens. I know you're all frustrated with Joe Mixon. I am too. But the Ravens were toying with Joe Burrow this week, and the entire Bengals offense stalled as a result. Mixon still got 8 targets and 24 carries. He's being used in an elite manner, and the weekly impressions know that better days are ahead. Panthers versus the Falcons. All right, I'm ready to declare Robbie Anderson is the Carolina Panthers wide receiver 1. Bridgewater just always looking his way. It's not like DJ Moore isn't open. He's open a lot. I'm talking wide open. Be sure to check the link that I included in the text version of this to just see how wide open he is. But even though he's open, Bridgewater just isn't looking for him. So for now, DJ Moore is a wide receiver at best. I think you might want to sell him after this touchdown this week, but don't sell too low. Raiders versus the Chiefs. Ooh, Henry Ruggs. Great game. His 2 catches were both highlight reel plays. One a deep pass where he absolutely scorched the defense, and the other was a contested catch that he turned into a touchdown. Yeah, I know he only had 3 targets, but his presence really opens things up for the Raiders. To me, he looks like Tyreek Hill light. Cardinals versus the Jets. There is a world where Le'Veon Bell is a fantasy relevant player in 2020, but that world requires the firing of Adam Gase. At some point, I think fan pressure will overcome the management stupidity. I'm throwing out some super low ball offers on Le'Veon Bell just in case the Jets do the right thing and fire Adam Gase. All right, getting into the Eagles versus the Steelers. Travis Fulgham is the real deal. Yes, I know that Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson are coming back and they weren't in this game, but Fulgham just lit up the best defense in the NFL. I think he's earned playing time and you should pick him up. Rams versus the Washington football team. Malcolm Brown looked absolutely terrible. He just was running straight into a wall at the line of scrimmage. And yet the Rams keep playing him about 40% of the snaps and still gave him 8 carries. To me, he's droppable if you haven't already done it. Meanwhile, Cam Akers is still 3rd in the pecking order, but he was very efficient in this game. He did most of his damage while the game was out of hand, but that said, this was still his first game back from injury. I think it stands to reason that he eats into more of Brown's playing time. Dolphins versus the 49ers. All right, there's a ton to unpack in this one, so here's 4 quick reactions. First, Raheem Mostert handled by far the majority of the backfield touches, which I think renders McKinnon useless, especially in a game where the 49ers were mostly down the whole game. Second, Preston Williams looked healthy for the first time this year. That tracks about normally with the ACL timeline for full health. So I think he's a solid add on the waiver wire this week. Third, Jordan Howard was actually a healthy scratch, which allowed Myles Gaskin to have a goal line attempt. If that continues, Gaskin's ceiling is far higher. Lastly, I do want to note that Devo got 8 targets, even though he had a terrible stat line. Go ahead and see if you can buy him on the cheap. The Giants versus the Cowboys. The story of this game is Dak Prescott's injury, which certainly changes the Cowboys' offense. But the question is, by how much? Andy Dalton came in and immediately made some bad mistakes. He fumbled a snap. He almost threw a pick. He took some sacks. But He did make some plays at the end of the game. Those plays were probably more a result of Dallas's spectacular playmakers, though. Given the atrocious Dallas defense, I think Dalton's going to have to throw a lot to those spectacular playmakers, so their value shouldn't be hurt too much, but he's still clearly a downgrade. Colts versus the Browns. Phillip Rivers looks awful. And as a result, I really don't think there's a single pass catcher on the Colts worth rostering. Not even T.Y. Hilton's 10 targets in week 5 could result in a decent fantasy day. By the way, Ernest Johnson only had 8 carries, but I really think you could ignore that. He only had 2 carries before Kareem Hunt got banged up. Hope he didn't spend big fab on him last week. All right, last game, Vikings versus the Seahawks. It's hard to believe, but Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf played the exact same number of snaps, 96%. Despite this equal playing time, Metcalf is Russell's clear new safety blanket. He looked at him a ton at the end of the game, and especially on that game-winning drive. Lockett's playing time really should reflect bigger numbers, but clearly he's been passed by Metcalf. All right, thanks for watching, and we will see you next week for the weekly impressions of Week 6.